The crack of laughter cut sharper than the rifle fire. On the training range, for S4 cadets circled her like wolves, their tan uniforms still stiff with starch, their pride gleaming brighter than their brass. She stood at the center, alone, out of place, and exactly where they wanted her. "Ma'am," one cadet sneered, dragging the word until it dripped with mockery, "maybe you should stick to paperwork. Don't want you hurting yourself with a real weapon." The others chuckled. Their boots scraped the gravel, forming a half-moon around her as though the shooting range were their arena and she, the unwilling showpiece. Her weapon rested against the bench, untouched, while theirs gleamed in the morning sun. She adjusted her faded jacket, its sleeves worn at the elbows, the insignia nearly washed away by time. She didn't rise to their bait. She didn't need to. Her silence unsettled them more than any retort could. Still, the tallest cadet pressed forward, his voice carrying for everyone to hear. "Bet she can't even load a mag without fumbling. Colonel's wasting his time letting her stand out here." A hush fell. Heads turned down the line. Other soldiers slowed their drills, eyes narrowing with curiosity. Mockery in the military was nothing new, but this was different. This was pointed. This was spectacle. The woman, shorter than all of them, her hair streaked with gray at the temples, met their gaze for the first time. Her eyes were steady. Clear. But she said nothing. One cadet laughed louder, lifting his rifle. "Tell you what, 45 seconds. That's all we'll give her before she embarrasses herself. Clock it." From behind the group, boots struck the earth with a rhythm only one man carried. The colonel. His shadow stretched across the gravel, and with it, the atmosphere changed. The cadets straightened instinctively, but too late, the damage had been done. He had seen the circle, the laughter, the disrespect. He looked at the woman, then at his cadets. His jaw tightened. And in a voice that carried like steel drawn from its sheath, the colonel issued an order that would silence the range for the rest of the day. Her name was Captain Marissa Hale, though most in the new cadet class barely recognized it. To them, she was just another officer filling out the numbers, a relic assigned to oversight because she no longer fit the rhythm of active combat life. What they didn't know, what few in the room could even comprehend, was that she had once carried more weight on her shoulders than any of them could imagine. Years earlier, before most of these cadets had even chosen the academy, she had led supply convoys through regions where every mile meant death waited in silence. Ambushes. Roadside bombs. Nights that stretched into weeks without sleep. She had survived all of it, not because she was lucky, but because she was precise. Calm when others broke. But war does not decorate its survivors with glory. It scars them quietly. Marissa had returned home to silence, to paperwork, to a desk where the memory of each lost comrade grew heavier by the day. By the time she stepped back into the academy as a trainer, she was no longer the woman in headlines. She was the woman forgotten. The cadets only saw what was in front of them, a middle-aged officer who didn't match their idea of speed or power. They didn't hear the echo of engines humming through desert nights. They didn't know the names carved in her memory. So they mocked her. Not out of cruelty alone, but out of ignorance. Still, she bore it quietly. Her hands never shook when she loaded a magazine, though she hadn't fired in front of a unit for years. Her voice stayed even when a cadet muttered insults just loud enough to hear. And when the colonel called her to the range that morning, she walked out without hesitation. The tension had been building long before that moment. Each chuckle, each whispered doubt, was a stone in the pile. And now, on the gravel range, the weight of it all pressed toward a breaking point. She knew this much: the colonel had given her a sliver of time to act. To either prove them wrong, or prove them right. And she would not waste it. The colonel's order echoed across the range. Load. Fire. 45 seconds. The cadets' smirks faltered. The silence of authority cut deeper than any scolding could. They shuffled, rifles in hand, not sure if the challenge had been meant as punishment or spectacle. But Marissa knew. It was neither. It was a chance. Her palms brushed the cold steel of the rifle. She inhaled, the smell of oil and dust rising like an old memory. For a brief moment, she was 25 again, crouched in the dark beside a burning convoy, counting heartbeats before the next shot. The stopwatch clicked. Her movements unfolded without hesitation. Mag seated. Bolt racked. Safety off. The cadets had barely lifted their rifles when the first report cracked from hers. The sound rolled across the range like a declaration. Dust kicked from the target. Dead center. They scrambled to catch up, fumbling in the rush. She did not rush. Her breathing was a metronome, each exhale marking the rhythm of her trigger pull. Second shot. Third. Fourth. A cluster formed on the target, tighter than a fist. Gasps rose from the watching line of soldiers. The cadets, red-faced now, tried to push harder, but their rounds scattered wide. Their pride bled into panic. Marissa never looked at them. She wasn't proving herself to them. She was proving something to herself, that the years had not dulled her edge. That the silence she carried was not weakness. The seconds bled away. At 35, her final round left the chamber. She lowered the rifle, calm as a clock hand reaching its mark. The colonel stepped forward, his eyes fixed not on the cadets, but on her. A small nod, so subtle most missed it. But she caught it. And it was enough. The stopwatch clicked again. 45 seconds. Done. On the line, the targets told the story. Marissa's, clean, centered, undeniable. The cadets, erratic, sloppy, scattered in the rush of ego. No one spoke. The laughter that had mocked her hours earlier had died into silence so heavy it pressed into the bones. Even the wind seemed to pause, waiting. The colonel's voice carried across the range. Cadets, front and center. They obeyed, boots striking in uneven rhythm. Their heads hung low now, pride reduced to fragments at their feet. You surrounded her, the colonel said, voice cutting like gravel. You thought numbers meant strength. You thought youth meant superiority. You thought arrogance meant authority. He pointed to the targets. And in 45 seconds, she showed you what real strength looks like. The cadets stood frozen. Marissa remained still, her weapon at rest, her gaze steady. From this day forward, the colonel continued, you will address Captain Hale with the respect she has earned. If I hear otherwise, you won't stand on my range again. A murmur spread through the line of soldiers. Not mockery. Not doubt. But respect, new, sharp, and real. Marissa exhaled slowly. She hadn't wanted the spotlight. She hadn't wanted to prove anything. But dignity is not always a choice. Sometimes it rises, unbidden, when silence is no longer enough. She lifted the rifle, placed it back on the bench, and stepped away, not with triumph, but with quiet certainty. The cadets would remember this day. Not because of the shots fired, but because of what they revealed, that strength often hides in plain sight, wrapped not in noise, but in silence. And for the first time in years, Captain Marissa Hale allowed herself the faintest of smiles.